Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Countdown to Launch. I am Roberto, and on this show, we talk to designers and creators of games and their Kickstarter journeys and when they'll launch on Kickstarter. Today, I have two wonderful guests. I have, hopefully, I can say this right today, Frode and Tale,
Yeah.
and we're going to be talking about their game, Fjordar. Yes, maybe I said that right. Yeah.
Yeah,
Perfect.
perfect.
Awesome, awesome. So let's get right into it. Tell us about, well, your beautiful backdrop because that's probably the best backdrop I've seen
Thank
on
you.
a interview like this. But more about yourself and your game.
Okay, so we are Go to Pieces Games. We're a small company on the west coast of Norway, and we have just launched our first game on Kickstarter, and it's inspired by the nature and the history of the area we live in. Here you can see. And we're really excited about this whole Kickstarter journey, which is really new to us,
Yeah.
and it's very exciting. So, and this is Frode. He's our game designer,
Yes,
so he will answer all the questions
about the game. Yeah.
about the game.
Cool. So we have the designer, and then do you deal with the Kickstarter stuff then?
Yeah, I do more
Yeah.
of those things. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So let's have a couple questions first for about the game designer. How'd you get into the game design aspect of this whole game that you brought up?
Well, this game, I actually started working on it. It was probably 8 years ago for the first time. Then there was a completely different game, but some of the core mechanics was the same. We had this 3D terrain, and this aspect that you should connect various castles to transport these airs between the castles. That was the core mechanic that still is in Fjordar. And this game was something I just worked on for a year, and then I put it away. I thought it was way too complicated. It was more like a traditional war game with dice and tables and things like that. Then 2 years ago, we wanted to make a game about the Norwegian Civil War, and I thought this game that I had lying could actually fit perfect because many of the aspects fit nicely into the Norwegian Middle Ages. The only thing we added terrain-wise was the fjords, of course. There was no fjords in this game, and all of the other mechanics like the combat, movement system, and everything is also brand new and much simpler than what we had in that old game.
That sounds fantastic. So you had this old game, you had the idea to pull it out the closet and make what it is today, and now I saw that you're about 50% funded. Are you halfway funded on Kickstarter right now?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
10 days roughly. Yeah.
That's fantastic. Out of the whole the game itself, what piece of it are you most proud of?
Could I say the table presence? I think it looks really good. It looks good on the table and it makes sense. I mean, we haven't put anything into it that doesn't add anything to the game itself. Still, it looks good. So I think the table presence is probably what I'm most proud of.
Yeah, it looks really nice. And also the 3D aspect of the game, which is also a part of why it looks so nice, is also an important aspect of the mechanics of the game.
Yeah, you have the base and terrain, and it photographs beautifully. So both of the things that you just said, I was looking at the website earlier today, and wow, that game just photographs really well, well. Absolutely. So in creating all this, because this has been an 8-year journey for you, what are some of these challenges or failures you have come across?
Well, I would guess, of course, say COVID was a big challenge when we couldn't go to cons anymore and test it on people. So we had to make a tabletop simulator version for it. But we were actually glad we did that anyway, because it was so useful to reach out to people and do a quick play test with people living in different cities. And so that was useful anyway.
Okay.
But I guess I know the battle system took a while to get right. We probably through well, if you count the old game, it was probably like 4 different iterations of it that were very different from each other.
With playtesting, actually, before we get into playtesting, can you speak more about those the iterations? Was it card-based, dice rolling? Was it just drawing a card?
First
entirely?
one, the old one was dice-based. The idea behind that was that it should be very simple. It was only 3 dice with the symbols V for victory or D for defeat. And if you rolled more V's than D's, then you knew instantly that you had won. So you would consult a table telling you what dice you should roll, and they had different numbers of V and D's on them. Then we switched to cards when we started doing the Fjordar. And we tried first this Port Royal-ish pressure luck system with flipping cards, but didn't turn out for this pressure luck feeling that we really wanted to have on it. And through various other versions, we ended up with a more simpler version that's a little bit inspired from Game of Thrones, the board game, where we just compare the strength of the units, and then you play a card. Unlike Game of Thrones, here each player have a common deck that they draw cards from, and the cards have different interactions with each other. Also, here you also had a terrain, adding more combat bonuses if some of the supporting units are higher in the terrain. You can imagine archers and people throwing rocks down on the people below them.
Okay. And with all these systems, I mean, this game, you have a weight rating of 3.0 on BGG. So this is it's like medium heavy-ish.
Yeah.
How was playtesting like? How was balancing this game? Because you have all sorts of mechanics with the combat, and so you're moving people and the terrain and stuff. How was the playtesting for you?
Well, in the beginning, we had this very symmetric terrain where the terrain was sort of the same for each player, but that made for very boring boards or maps. So we made it more asymmetric, and we ended up making the setup of the map part of the game. So players will build a map in the beginning of the game, and then we didn't have to sort of fine-tune the balance of each position on the board because the board was player made. And then we had also these various leader powers that you choose after you have built the board. So if you see that you are maybe in a position surrounded by lots of sea, you can choose a leader who gives you easily boats, for instance, and you can do things like that.
Okay. Is asymmetric player power or asymmetric area control, is that one of your favorite game types? Because that sure as heck is one of my favorite game types.
It is, yes. If there are some, they don't need to be total asymmetric, even though I also love that. Games like Vast, the Crystal Caverns, or Root, but yeah, they are among my favorites.
How about you, Tale?
Yeah, of course, it's fun. Yeah, I like it. Yeah.
Cool. So this game in particular, what motivated you to do the nature and history of where you are versus really anything else?
I think it's to me, playing board games, like the real great experiences of playing board games is when you have like a whole package of like an epic kind of feeling that you are drawn into a history and you are starting to kind of believe in that landscape and that history that you are playing in. And I think we wanted to put that into our game as well. And then the area we live in is the one we know the best, so it was a good place to start. And the history, and we think, I mean, corner of the world has something to tell, and this was our story, so it was a good start, I think. And luckily we had, like Frode had made like a base that we could start building on, and I think that was very fortunate. And I think that's very important for me, that this game has a strong and logical history to tell.
Did you do a lot of research as far as the history goes? I'm just curious to know, because you have the different terrains, and you have terrain behind you, right? So what was the research like going into this game making process?
Yeah, well, just now we researched that going straight uphill takes a lot of power. So that's
Nice.
Well, like the movement system is the idea for the game came from these books by this Norwegian historian called Tore Skeie, and he also talks a bit about how you got around Norway as a common person back in those days. For instance, there were no roads in Norway until the 14th century. Like only streets in some cities, but no roads. So the way to get around was either by ship, or you could follow even level terrain, but you try to avoid going up and down a lot. So in the game, going up and down costs movement points. If you try to keep on a level, on the same level, it costs you nothing. And so that's really well reflected in the game. And we have the only time you can move fast in Norway was in the winter, when everything was covered in snow, because then you could use skis, you could attach a sled to your horse and get your goods around. So therefore, when you play the Christmas card as your movement card, the landscape is covered in snow and you move around really fast.
That's cool.
And
How many different? Go ahead.
I'm sorry. For the research, we also have been looking into the old saga literature. That is like written down stories from. They were written down like in the 13th century, I think, about the kings and that ruled the country in these years that we have now made the game about. So part of the research was actually to read all these old saga books.
Yeah.
And it's really fascinating stories.
Especially Sverre saga is an important one. That was written a bit earlier by Sverre himself, so you shouldn't trust all that's written in it, because it's a propaganda tool for one of the sides in the war.
Yeah, he probably wasn't as beautiful as he claimed in that book.
Or as brave or smart.
The different factions that you have in this game, are they representative of different areas in Norway? Are they factions, or are they what would you call them?
To some extent, yes, because but this war started with when old King Sigurd Jorsalfar died in 1130, and about 5 years later, it came to an open conflict between some of his heirs, and they sort of split into two factions, and this war lasted for 110 years. And so some of these factions, they got more well established in certain parts of the country, and so they had sort of bases in various parts of the country in a way. But a lot of the time, like Bergen, where we live, was the capital back then, and a lot of the time, one party could swoop in and take a city, and then the other city where they came from would be open and no the defenders. So the other party would just go and take that instead. So they switched around a lot and a lot of movement.
And there was also a challenge that in this time, like Frode said, people would move around mainly by ship. So there was a lot of contact with the British Islands and Ireland, and these people also came all the time, and there were Norwegians going over there, and they came over here, and the Danes came invading. So there are many alliances that are changing, and So it's
And also a lot of foreign mercenaries in the war as well.
And all that's represented in your game, because I think I saw it was a trailer or it was a game playthrough where someone was moving something down terrain and onto a boat, and then they removed a red cube and put a blue cube in, and then moved over the water and then got on some land and started battling.
Yeah.
So are cubes indicative of control?
Yes, they are your control cubes. So they just indicate where what you own. So if there's an open boat, like a boat that doesn't have any units in it, you can just take it and steal it. Which also they did a lot.
Naturally, yes. Just like you said, they left it unarmed. We're gonna take it over.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's switch gears to the Kickstarter campaign. How from beginning to end? I mean, this started 8 years ago, but as soon as you got your first prototype, and I don't know how many prototypes did you go through for this game?
Well, we had the old one that was 8 years ago, but now since we started making Fjordar, which was 2 years ago, I don't know, probably had. Well, I have been changing incrementally also, so it's hard to say where one prototype starts and ends and one other begin.
That's fair.
4 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
And at what point did you start marketing the game, and how did the marketing go for you? And let's talk about from that aspect to the Kickstarter, and now you're halfway funded, and you're going to be done in what is 11 days or 12 days, about that?
20 days.
20 days.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. In 20 days. So right from the beginning, how was marketing for you? Marketing this game?
The first things we did was going to these big
Conventions.
Yeah. Thank you.
UK Games Expo was the first one, I guess.
Yeah, UK Games Expo, and
2 years ago.
we were in Cannes in France, and in Essen in Germany.
This was all pre-COVID. So.
Yeah, that was back in the days when there were real conventions, and so bringing the prototype and letting people play, test it, look at it, talking to people. I think that was a really good way of communicating, and it wasn't really marketing, but still, it's kind of marketing anyway.
Yeah,
you kind of
absolutely
get to show what you have, and you get feedback, really important feedback. So I think that was a really good kind of organic way to develop the project. And then COVID happened, and we were hoping to have our campaign last year, but during COVID, everything just made it so difficult because of the conventions were closed down, and it was so difficult to know and to plan anything and to know when things would start to reopen. And we had to kind of change the strategy because we really like the convention kind of marketing.
We did try some of the digital conventions, but that didn't work too well, I think.
No, we were to one of them, the big one, UK Games Expo, and the digital one. We didn't really get through. So that's
it is definitely better to have something organic, right? If someone walks past your booth or your game, what is that? Looks really cool, especially with the presence. How you talked about the presence of this game is one of the things you're most proud of. If I saw that, I'd be like, oh, let me try this out because it just looks so pretty.
Thank you.
So that was what we were doing, and then we understood that we had to do some more kind of get to know people more, and we had this tabletop simulator version made that Frode made, and that was a way to communicate with people, even though it's much more difficult to reach out. At least there was a way to have game testing and also just show how does this work and what is this project about.
I also had a really nice feedback from people that just tested a game of Tabletop Simulator and given us feedback on everything from the rules and the rule book, and some have gone through the rule book in detail and helped us with a lot of details, which is really nice.
People are amazing. Yeah, that's so wonderful. Yeah. So that was kind of what we have been doing, and of course lately now with the Kickstarter coming up, we were trying also to do more like ads and stuff. And that seems to be a way to reach out to people in this time when we cannot actually be out there with people. So that seems to work.
Okay.
And also sending
Did you make your Kickstarter page?
Yeah.
Okay. That thing is crisp, so beautiful. I've seen some Kickstarter pages. Oh, maybe a little polishing, but your Kickstarter page is really nice on the eyes. It's a great work on
a bit in a hurry at the end there, but we got it.
Excellent. So now, where now you're in the middle. From what I understand with Kickstarter, a lot of the funding comes on the first days, and a lot of the funding comes on the last days.
Yeah.
What's the plan to get to day, or with 20 days left? What is the plan to ramp it up?
It's a difficult question. So what we have been trying to do is kind of make sure that what we do in this campaign is something that we actually know that we can fulfill, that we are not promising anything that we cannot handle. So that means that we don't have a lot of stretch goals and add-ons and stuff. We have like this complete game that this is the game. This is all you need, and we promise you this is going to be a great experience. So that doesn't always talk so well with Kickstarter. People want stretch goals, they want add-ons and stuff. So this is something we have to kind of look into more. But still, kind of, it's important to us to know that this is something we can actually fulfill. And we're first-time creators, so we don't want to, in Norwegian we say, open our mouths too wide. And that also means that we have set a funding goal that's quite high. I know that a lot of backers have commented on that. And it's a way for us to make sure that we have nothing in here that will give us any surprises and delays and difficulties in fulfilling actually what we have promised.
Yeah, if we reach that goal, we know that we can deliver, which is important to us.
Yeah.
It's great that you talk about that, because last year with COVID and even now, shipping is almost impossible. Like, it's so difficult to get something from A to B, and it's taking forever. Shipping costs have gone up exponentially, so it's great that you're setting yourself up with that safety net just for that reason. That's great on both of you for doing that. Absolutely.
So then, but of course it's risky. It's not so Kickstarter friendly. So we will see, and as you say, we'll have to see what happens in the next weeks. But we have such a lot of really great backers, and they're giving so much support. So we feel that kind of like we want to do this.
We're getting a lot of great input from all the backers, I think, in the comments and in our Facebook group and on Kickstarter page.
Nice.
So it's important for us to fulfill for them. Yeah.
Absolutely. How are you going to make someone's face on a card? Because I saw that and that looked really cool.
Well, the plan is to get the backers who have chosen that pledge to send us a picture with some instructions from us on how that picture should be with angle and lighting, and we will send them to our artist Thomas Duchek in the Czech Republic, and he will put the faces into this medieval character.
That's cool. That is, even though it's not a stretch goal, that is a cool element to have in a game, because that makes me want to spend more money to be immortalized in a board game. That's so fun.
The good thing is that we have no idea how these people looked anyway, so
right.
To get some diversity into the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to thank you for spending some time with me. It's bright out there. What time is it over there, if you don't mind me asking? Is it 7, 6?
Yeah,
9,
half past 7 in the evening.
Nice, excellent. So I'm over here on the East Coast at 1:30 or so. So you have plenty of daylight. You can expend some more of that using that research, right? Going from up the mountain to the bottom.
Yeah.
It's going so fast.
Yeah.
We're gonna
But a
check
couple more.
the parts.
Yes, yeah. You got to make sure that you can see the funding of your game. Um, so you have 20 more days. How much is the game?
At a price.
At a price, yes.
Yeah.
So it's 79 euros, including
Okay.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
$96, isn't it?
Yeah. Except
Cool.
shipping. Yeah.
Yeah.
We have to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what is the exact date of the day that you end?
27th of June, I think it is.
27th of June. Fantastic. Well, again, I want to thank you again for spending some time with me this afternoon. And it sounds like if this goes well, you're going to have more games to put out there.
Yeah,
Definitely.
And we'll be having another conversation
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I hope
about
so.
your next game. Yeah, absolutely. But until then, happy gaming.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
You're welcome.